Crosby in trouble, and Godwin take it down for a second time.
Jump ball, touchdown, Darren Waller. Yeah, baby.
The Raiders cash in.
You know.
Left it. Touchdown. Foster Moreau.
Ball is loose at midfield.
Raiders say they've got it. They do.
Hole in the right side, cut to the 10. Jackpot, baby.
Drake, and he's in for a touchdown.
On his way.
Yes, baby.
And it's picked off. Merrick.
They're turning it up.
Welcome to the Silver and Black Show presented by Cox, along with All-Pro tackle Lincoln Kennedy. I'm JT, and Lincoln, the Pro Bowl, but not only the Pro Bowl in Vegas, and there are several Raiders on the list.
Yeah, we've got an extensive list, and congratulations to when those guys, whoever's going to make it, because I remember that time when, as a player, you're excited about this time of year for the chance to make the Pro Bowl, and you look at that list right there, really extensive, a lot of players. I think there's a number of players that have a good chance to call, obviously with the year that Denzel Perryman having, but there's a couple of omissions I'm not really uneasy with. Then you talked about one being Derek Carr from that list, but also Colton Miller, who I think is having a tremendous year at left tackle.
We've been talking about Colton for so many years now, but I want to talk about some of the players. Let's start with Darren Waller. Even though he's been banged up for a couple of weeks, he clearly is one of the premier players in the entire league. He's a receiver playing tight end, and I expect to see him on that list for years to come.
Yeah, he's one of those difference makers, JT. He really is. When you think about what Darren Waller can do as a receiver, he's not just a tight end, but he's also a specialist. And he's one of those tweeners that you can't cover him with a linebacker, you can't cover him with a safety, he can have an advantage. So he's one of those special players that the Raiders are blessed to have on their team.
Let's talk about the end. Yannick Ngakoue having a big year, but Mad Max Crosby. There was talk about him through the first 4 or 5 games as Defensive Player of the Year. So he put up some numbers early. He's getting double-teamed all along, but I think the fans see this in the vote.
What's been impressive mostly to me for Max Crosby is the transformation, the way he has developed himself into a pure player. Coming back off of last year when he noticed that people were paying attention to him, he's started to improve his game, and Yannick Ngakoue really has helped him with that development pushing forward. So that's a good thing to see for years to come. You've got 2 good defensive ends.
Let's talk about A.J. Cole and Daniel Carlson. They're signed to long-term deals. There's so much to say here. This is fantastic. You played in the league, and when you get that contract extension, and especially the backstory of these 2 individuals, this is cause for celebration.
Yeah, you know what? It comes down to making the best opportunity of your chances, and when you get out there, you look at these 2 guys. Carlson was cut from Minnesota a couple games in the season. A.J. Cole was sitting on his couch waiting for a phone call, but got a free agent tryout as a punter, and has been a very big development and a great special teams for the Raiders.
What I like about Cole, too, is you look at the history of this team with Leckler, Ray Guy, all the great punters, and the kickers, your former teammate Sebastian Janikowski, so this is rare air.
You remember those years before we had Seabass, how many games we struggled, losing less than 3 or less than a touchdown? When we got Seabass, a lot of people questioned why use a first-round pick on him, and I remember Al Davis saying because we needed a kicker, and he's the best out there, so it worked out. I mean, he's probably a future Hall of Famer, Seabass, but Leckler was another difference maker in the punting game.
Well, Lincoln, here we go again with Raider injuries. The players are trying to get healthy. Good news, Trayvon Mullen at practice this week, which is very important because he was having a big year. Let's talk about him returning, especially in time for Kansas City, where he's going to be called on.
As he developed himself, he became a better press corner. Definitely something that the Raiders need with their coverage. And if you watch Trayvon Mullen before he got injured, he was a difference maker out there at corner, and that's why it's important to have him back.
And also, I want to get into Perryman being out and how this could affect the team because of his stats and what he was able to do in the middle of the field. Obviously, calling out plays. Talk about that.
Yeah, he's the quarterback of the defense. He's the one that has the orange dot on his helmet, so he's calling out the defenses. This is a big loss, especially for this game. I expect C.J. Wright to step into that role and probably play his position. C.J. has experience, obviously, playing that linebacker position, but Denzel Perryman is having an all-pro type of year.
And Lincoln, every team is dealing with this.
Yeah.
Every team has lost multiple players. We add another game this year, short-term IR to come off of IR. It's a benefit for some teams, but you got to have your players late in the season.
Well, I also think that's why you added to the practice squad, and you look at a lot of teams' practice squads, including the Raiders, they've got a number of veterans, notable veterans on their practice squad. Sometimes you have to bring it up, but when you look at the back of this season, start of the season, the linebackers were a deficit until we got Denzel Perryman, until we got KJ Wright. Nick Wachowski is now on IR. I mean, it's really hard to keep these players on the field for these remaining 5 games.
Well, we talked about Kenyon Drake being out and what he can do. He can do a lot in the passing game and the running game, but fortunately, Josh Jacobs is as healthy as I can recall him being, Lincoln, this time of year. Talk about the necessity for him to take over games going forward.
Well, Josh Jacobs always wanted to be successful. It was one of the things I enjoyed watching about this young man, especially his development as a Raider. But more importantly, as you said, being healthy this time of year, we haven't had that luxury the first 3 years of his career. He is as healthy as he has been, and it's important because the Raiders need to find a way to create some balance in their offensive attack. That means finding a way to increase the running game.
Once again, we are here talking about the team needing to start fast, which is critical. Again, we've talked about it for about a month. We know what happens when they do start fast. They're in the game at halftime. When they don't, they're trailing early. They got to make adjustments, and they're digging a hole. They got to start fast in Kansas City.
Well, they got to start fast, and more importantly, they got to score touchdowns. You're not going to beat the Chiefs kicking field goals, and they've struggled the last couple of games out there to get points from the board, and that's the reason why they're in the predicament they're in. Got to do something. Kansas City's not going to sit back and wait, and you know how potent that offense can be in Kansas City. So our offense has to be equally as potent, as well as keeping the ball away from Kansas City's offense.
Lincoln, you've been in meeting rooms your whole career. You were a leader in this organization. What's it like when it gets frustrating? The players want to start fast. The coaches have been preaching it. As a player, as a former All-Pro, what's your role to get the team motivated to get out quicker?
It's called accountability. The fact is, as a player, you got to do everything you're right. And what I mean by that is whatever your responsibility is. As an offensive tackle, my responsibility was to keep the quarterback and the running backs clean. So I'm going to go out there and give my best effort when I'm out there on the football field. I'm paying attention to details. I'm not committing penalties, which hurts your team, and I'm not losing focus. The task at hand is what you need to do, and that's for every single player on that football field. This team is talented enough and deep enough to have that type of success if they go out there. You look at the first time they played Kansas City. What hurt them? Penalties and extended drives on Kansas City's offense. Penalties and the nullified drives on our offense, and not putting up enough points. You're not going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs kicking field goals.
Well, let's talk about a leader who was able to start fast. Former MVP Rich Gannon was on my radio show this week.
You could make the argument that there's not a quarterback and maybe an offense more prepared to go up-tempo, no huddle than the Raiders. I mean, think about what they have created there in terms of the one-word calls, and they have 5 different speeds with which they play at.
This is Rich Gannon, your former teammate, saying they're built to do this, Lincoln. How do they do it?
Well, first of all, quarterback's got to trust. Got to trust everybody out there. Trust the personnel, and that's absolutely essential. He's got to trust his offensive line is going to block. He's got to trust that the receivers are going to get open. When you look across the table at the number of weapons the Raiders have, there's no shortage. They've got everything taken care of. Of course, not being without Darren Waller this week is going to hurt them, but Foster Moreau has came with some critical catches at times, and you got to find a way to get everyone involved. It starts with the QB.
When we come back on the Silver and Black Show, we'll break down the Kansas City vaunted offense.
The Silver and Black Show is brought to you by Cox, proud partner of the Las Vegas Raiders, and by Allegiant, the official airline of the Las Vegas Raiders. Low fares, nonstop flights. Book now only at Allegiant.com.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black Show presented by Cox. Okay, Lincoln, now we jump in with Kansas City's offense, and this is a big one now because Tyreek Hill will get to Kelsey in a second, and I think Casey Hayward is the player, the veteran, that hopefully can slow down Hill.
Well, the Raiders have it within their defense, but they don't play a lot of shadow technique. And what I mean by that, and you look at the first game, they moved Tyreek Hill a lot around to create those combinations with him and Kelsey. They didn't just leave him in a stagnant place playing X or Z. But I agree with your point. Casey Hayward is the most experienced, our best corner, and Trayvon Mullen, no pun against him. He's just coming back. But Casey Hayward gives you the best chance. They would have to shadow him. He would have to play a lot of man coverage, and you would have to go with him, something the Raiders don't typically do.
Well, it's interesting to me because he can get behind you, and I've always said this. I've talked to Hall of Fame cornerbacks and say, what do? Do you give him 5 yards, or do you pound him at the line of scrimmage? And as you say, he can get in motion.
Yeah.
He causes havoc every time he plays the Raiders.
There's not many people who can keep up with his speed. And the fact is, if you get him in space, he can be dangerous because he's got a quarterback who has so much confidence. He'll throw it anywhere, and Tyreek Hill will go after it. So the thing is, I would think you would have to bump him. You would have to play physical with him and bump him to nullify that speed coming off of the line of scrimmage. Easier said than done, and especially when they move him around, they know that they're going to get that bump and run coverage, especially against the Raiders. It's hard.
Well, pick your poison now as we go to Travis Kelce and what he's done in this matchup. It is incredible. We've talked about this at length over the years, and they don't know what to do. Should they get their hands on him? Is he going to break into a route? Do you have to have help over the top? He has been a nightmare for this organization.
Well, it's also, nightmare for the rest of the league. You talk about his ability, but the fact is, with the tight end and the slot receiver, there's so much real estate in the middle of the field, and there's so many opportunities to get catches. You know what the Chiefs did to the Raiders last game they played? It was yards after the catch. You see this play right here? You see how many missed tackles before he's brought down? That's what the Raiders cannot afford to have. They play a lot of zone defense. They create a cushion. It's a bend but don't break mentality. But look at these short passes and these wide open gaps. You've got to make tackles when these guys catch the ball.
Lincoln, that is such a great point. You said in the past they go over the top. In the game in Las Vegas, they were throwing underneath. I couldn't believe it. And as you just pointed out there, the tackling is critical here to get Kelce and Hill on the ground.
2 reasons for that. No quarterback wants to hold on to the ball long against this defense, this pass rush. With Max Crosby and Ngakoue out there, you got 2 ends that are coming around, so you're not going to hold on the ball that long. And this defense, this cushion that they play in this cover 3, they back up. They give you some yards. A lot of quarterbacks that have played against the Raiders are taking those little check down routes, if you will, and they're yards after the catch. And that's something the Raiders really have to avoid.
Here's Raiders defensive coordinator Gus Bradley.
The speed is something that you got to be aware of, and obviously guys like Kelce and Tyreek, you have to have great awareness where they are in the field. The one thing that you see is that the ability to get the ball out quick. Where maybe a year ago it was longer, extended plays, let's take shots, where I think they're executing very well right now. They're very, very efficient. And then on top of it, they're picking and choosing their times to take the big shots and the plays. So, they're very well-rounded. They're executing very high, and you can see that it's almost like, let's go back, let's really execute well, and then slowly let's add these shots in and these plays, and you're seeing each game that they're adding more and more big plays off of it.
Gus said it all, and now we move on to Patrick Mahomes, and we know how great he is, Lincoln. But in the last 5 games, the Raider game, he exploded, but the other 4 he's won, and he hasn't played up to his standard.
Those defenses played a lot differently than the Raiders played the Chiefs the first time around. Those defenses had a way of having being a little bit more effective. Now, if you're the Raiders, you can't change who you are. You can't change your stripes. That's going to be, but at the same point, you got to take notice what he did the last game. He had most of his success throwing those short routes, and something to add to Coach Bradley, what he was talking about, Andrew Reid wants to win time of possession because he also wants to keep the ball away from the Raiders offense, who could be potent. And they got into a shootout a couple times last year. They don't want to get in the shootout this time because then they think the pressure on Patrick Mahomes might force him to make a turnover or a critical error.
Well, when you hold them to 1 touchdown or no touchdowns, you got to win the game.
Yeah.
Coming up, my weekly conversation with head coach Rich Bisaccia as we preview the Kansas City Chiefs and what it will take to get out of Kansas City with a win as we continue on the Silver and Black Show. Welcome back to the Silver and Black Show presented by Cox. Earlier this week, I caught up with head coach Rich Bisaccia to talk about the contract extensions for A.J. Cole and Daniel Carlson and what it will take to beat the Chiefs. All right, Coach, let's begin in general with injuries. We'll find out who's active on Sunday, but what's it been like for you this year during the week, finding out who's ready, talking to the trainers and doctors, and trying to find out who the next man up's going to be?
Yeah, certainly Chris does a great job for us, Cortez. We have a great staff down there in the training room, and they've had their hands full, all year, certainly going all the way back to training camp when Richie got banged up. But they do a great job of letting us know early in the week, as they possibly can, of who would be week to week, who would be day to day, who we think think we're going to have by the end of the week for this or each in particular game. So it's been trying at times, but they do a great job of kind of keeping their thumb on who we're going to have for each particular game.
Let's talk about Kuntz and Diablo. They were next man up. They got an opportunity to play. Can you touch on their development all year from the preseason to getting their opportunities and how they performed?
Yeah, well, first of all, Divine. Divine's actually played every special teams play in all the games this year. He's done really well. He's been the right tackle on punt team. That's to the foot side, so that's a big deal as well. And now Malcolm had a chance to dress because of some injuries that we did have, and came in and we thought played really well, gave us some good spark off the edge, got a big sack, and then did a really nice job rushing off the edge on punt return. So we'll see what happens this week, but we expect to have both of them playing.
Now, you spent a lot of time earlier in the week talking about the point of emphasis of starting early. This has been a topic for several weeks. How has the discussion changed about starting fast? We've seen the stats, the first quarter. Last year in Kansas City, we'll get to that game, everything came together, a quick start, and then the team gets rolling.
Yeah, I think if you look at our victories so far this year, we've started fast in the victories that we've had. If you look even at the Cincinnati game when we didn't end up winning the game, but we started fast. We got a turnover on defense. We had the ball at the 9-yard line. We would have loved to come out of there with a touchdown. We came out with a field goal. So I think for the most part, we'd like to defer. We'd like to play a little bit of defense first. We'd love to get off on the first set of defense, and then we'd love to score in our first possession. That's what we're all trying to do as we go through practice, as we go through the beginning of practice, and then we'd like to finish even faster if we can.
Even though there's new personnel, how much do you go back and look at that game last year at Arrowhead and see what works? A lot of Kansas City's personnel, the coaching staff being there, or do you look at tape from this year, what happened in Las Vegas when Kansas City was here earlier?
Yeah, I think all of the above, right? We've gone against, I think this is going to be our 8th game now since we've been here in 4 years going against Coach Reed, and we used to go against him a lot of times when he was over in Philly and we were in Tampa, and then Gus has done the same thing. He was with the Chargers. They get to go against them twice a year. So I think we're looking at all the tape that we've played against them in the past, and we're certainly looking up the last 4 weeks, last 5 weeks, what's gone on. We've played against them one time in that time. So we'll they still have the same quarterback, and they still got Tyreek Hill, and they still have the same tight end, and see if we can find them.
That's the segue into the tight end and Tyreek Hill, and especially Kelsey, to see what happened in the last game. And again, it's a point of emphasis on those two. Williams had a good game in Las Vegas. So they have a three-headed monster that at times can get out to 4 or 5 if their outside receivers are making plays, because those two great players are double teamed.
Yeah, again, I think the last time we had this conversation for Kansas City, we're all talking about Kansas City seems to be down. They don't seem to be playing very good on offense, and I think I called them magical, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And I think they still are. And certainly they came in here and to some degree had their way with us a little bit, and certainly found Kelsey as many times as they did. And so we'll have to do a better job, not only in that particular area with their receivers and their tight end, but we gave up the punt fake as well, going in late in the red zone, and we just have to play better in all areas.
What's interesting about those two, and obviously there are other great players, is do you want to play them over the top, conservative at times with two safeties high and just keep them in front of you? Or do you want to put your hands on them and get physical? That's the question Raider fans have been asking in this rivalry forever, because they can haunt you both ways. If you play them deep, Mahomes showed in the last game he can go underneath, and if you put your hands on them, they can get away off the point of attack and make a big play.
Yeah, again, you're playing coaching defense for us a little bit. So we did it all in the last game.
Right.
We played some bracket coverages. We tried to double Kelsey some, and we tried to put 2 on Tyreek at times as well. And Gus has had success, against this offense in the past. And you're not going to stop them. We'd like to limit them the best we possibly can, and we have to do our part as well in the kicking game to get some field position, and then we have to sustain some drives. We have to play better on third down on offense, as well as try to get ourselves off the field on defense.
With the Drake injury and Ingold being out here, Josh is back there now, and obviously you have complementary players, but it's December football, and you have a featured back, a former first-round pick, who can really step it up in these remaining games, quiet the crowd, move the chains on third down.
Yeah, again, quiet the crowd is going to be a team job, for all of us, and Josh, we think, has carried the load. He's done a good job, and some of the run game for him maybe not been as clean as we'd like, and he ends up finding a way to make a play as well. So we're always going to count on Josh to do his part, but it's certainly going to take a total team effort here and go to Kansas City.
And tell me about Carlson and Cole and the contract extensions. You've had your hands in their development. How proud are you as a mentor and a coach when you see two of your guys get contracts, rewarded, take care of their families, and you help develop them? How proud is that for you?
Well, I think a lot of the praise goes to Byron Storer as well, and we've been real fortunate to keep this battery together. The three of those guys with Trent involved is a great battery. They have a tremendous work ethic. They don't seem to ever tire. They've really worked at their craft, so I think the credit really goes to them and their work ethic, and certainly Byron deserves a lot of credit.
Coach, last one, from the 2 seed in the AFC to the 12 seed, separated by 2 games. You've been in this league a long time. Talk about how wide open this is if you have 6 or 7 wins and you're still in the hunt.
I think the exciting thing for a lot of teams, as well as us, is to be in December and to be in the middle of, having a chance to get into the tournament, and that's why we all come to do this every day at work.
Good luck in Kansas City.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
This segment of the Silver and Black Show has been brought to you by Visit Vegas. Vegas is the greatest arena on earth. Plan your trip now at visitvegas.com. The Silver and Black Show has been brought to you by 1800, the best taste in tequila and official partner of the Raiders. And by Chevron with Techron gives you unbeatable cleaning and mileage. Chevron, together ahead.
It's got to get better. There's no excuse. It's tough. You come to Vegas, you want to win. I want to win so badly. That's why I come here. That's why I'm a Raider. That's why I love the challenge. And it can be frustrating, but if you live in the past and keep worrying about that, it's probably not going to get better. So you just got to keep focusing on the day. I'm focused on Wednesday and trying to help my teammates, trying to bring everybody up and just get better. And that's what we did today. We got better as a group, and it was good to see.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black Show. Mad Max, he reminds me a lot of you. When I first met you, every game you treated like it was a playoff game.
Yeah, and it's important. I mean, because the Raiders have been in this position before. They're not out of it. They're at 500. They control their own destiny. And, JT, I'm one of those guys that think that when you're Max Crosby, you've got to go out there and do your job right. Can't hurt your team. You make plays and you cheer on the other side of the ball. So you cheer on the offense to help them bring them along as well.
And there's a lot more players in that locker room like that, and they have to have a great performance in Kansas City.
No doubt about it. That passion has got to come through, and you got to play well on Sunday against Kansas City.
Well, that's what it's about. It's about Kansas City. The Raiders are in this situation right now with their destiny in front of them in a very hostile environment. We know that there will be Raider fans on the road at Arrowhead. And the Raiders have played big in big spots historically in Kansas City. They're going to have to do it again on Sunday. Thanks for joining us on the Silver and Black Show.